Good afternoon, Saitlanders. How are you? We hope that you're well. This is just a brief anecdote on something that I've experienced recently, which may be a nice story for you to hear, although it's not particularly relevant to anybody else, I suppose. Um, but I just thought should share it. As many of you know, I've got a nice little flock of chickens. And I keep them in a very informal manner. I don't get terribly serious about it. I feed them well, medicate them nicely, with vitamins and things in their water from time to time. Not always. And for the most part, I let them carry on as perhaps we would have done as kids 40 years ago. Chickens in the garden, you let them do their own thing. And nobody in those days was vaccinating and inoculating and giving special vitamins and antibiotics. Antibiotics, as we know, are not terribly good things always, or very often are not good things. And they do their own thing, and we struggle here in the Northern Cape. It's obviously a hang of a lot more rural than, say, suburban Amanzimtoti, where I grew up, or Johannesburg, where I spent 20 years prior to accompanying Andre Coetzee to the USA, where I toured for 6 months, and then coming down to Van der Kloof. So it's a different kind of reality. And on top of that, behind my house is communal land. I suppose there must be a few hectares of it, perhaps 10 or 15. And if you count kind of around the corner, over the hill and around the back, then it becomes a lot more again. Anyway, the point being that in this environment, flocks of chickens kept in a backyard, as mine are susceptible to depredation by leguanes, Muskeljaatkata, civet cats, mongooses, particularly grey mongooses, and snakes. And you can do whatever you like. The reality is this: unless you get hardcore about it and you put a roof over their chicken run and you keep them in all of the time, day and night. This is a reality. People maybe don't want to hear this, but this is the truth. You are going to suffer enormous losses. Your flock is going to grow slowly. A prodigious hen, a hen that lays a lot, may bring out 10. The highest number I've had was, I think, 21 chicks. And 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 may survive. Within the first few days, you'll suddenly see a shortage, and you go and have a look, and you'll discover that their throats have been chewed away, just their throats. It means that the grey mongooses came in during the night. And so it's real. This is real life in the real world. And I know nowadays many people, even conservatives, astonishingly, seem to think that animals don't deserve to die. Real life in the real world doesn't take place. But it's not that way. And in fact, they're going to learn the very hard way that during our time that lies ahead, many of our people will suffer and die worse than animals, because lifestyle diseases, legacy lifestyle diseases, in other words, harm that you've done to your body prior to going into the crisis, effects and symptoms will rear their ugly heads, and sophisticated allopathic medication will not be available. There will be some people who do a very good job of using non-allopathic medicine, colloidal silver and this and that, the next thing, if they've accumulated stocks. But by and large, if a child gets appendicitis, it's going to be like living 80 years ago in let's say, a semi-rural area. I hate to say it, but that's just the fact of the matter. You're not going to be able to click your fingers and have an ambulance service come, maybe a helicopter fly in, take the child to the best hospital, put it on the bill, square it up with Discovery later on. It just simply won't work that way. So I, for one, am deaf to the protests of people who say, yeah, but don't you think you should? And maybe if you put on a roof, if you spent another 5,000 rand because money grows on trees, and these are the most important things in the whole wide world, then no, thank you very much. I don't mean to be rude to anybody who doesn't think that way. Please don't take my haughty tone the wrong way. It's not directed at people who don't think that way, but people who do think that way need to wake up. Anyway, so I want to come to a bit more of a point. I've recently had virulent Newcastle disease, it's called VND, in my flock. And I lost half my flock, or almost half my flock, in the span of a week. And there's very little you can do about it. There is a magic muti that you can get from Onderstepoort, but it costs an arm and a leg. And there are mutis that you can get from local co-ops, and of course broad spectrum antibiotics, some of which are more suitable and some of which are less suitable. And I got muti, not the fancy one from Onderstepoort, obviously, for 20 garden chickens. It's just not sensible. It simply isn't. It's, if you've got lots of money, it's great that you spend 16,000 rand on a vet bill. But for people who don't have lots of money, the option is that the dog dies. And it's heartbreaking, but it's real life. And you're going to see that real life realized and manifest among human beings before very long. So there are those of us who, don't buy into this namby-pamby pandering attitude towards our animals. We look after them well. I'm the only person I know that feeds my dogs the way that I do, but I don't let them sleep inside. That's nonsense. For security reasons I might, yes, but not as a matter of principle, because I feel sorry for them, kind of thing. Poor little angels. And I know this is sensitive. Guys, we all know it's sensitive. But we're going to have to now start discussing or speaking or telling hard truths like we have never done in the past. Anyway, back to the point. So along comes this virulent Newcastle disease, wipes out roughly half of my entire flock. And ironically, it comes with one of there are a couple of, they say, if you research it, that it can be associated with dirtiness, that the area where you're keeping the chickens, the area where they sleep, whatever, is not clean enough. And ironically, irony of ironies, it kicked in about a week after I did a big scrub. And all I can think is that there were dormant germs or bacteria or, I don't know, nits or, what do you call these, eggs or something, that weren't infecting the animals. And then when I did the scrub, that I disturbed those things. I don't know. I'm learning as I go along. It's a pity that it has to be at the expense of the animals, but this is real life in the real world. Sad as it is. Anyway, so and the incubation period is something like 7 days, unless I'm very much mistaken. So it's, I don't know. The cleaner I made the place, the sicker they got, as it were. Cleaned up, boom, got 6-7 days later, roughly. So I think the two were connected. I think there was a disturbance of dirt in the corners or whatever where stuff had been laying dormant. I can only assume. I'm no boffin on these things at all. And so, now so what I did was I gave them this smoothie, right, that you can get at the co-op. And lo and behold, after losing almost half of my flock, another one fell ill. And it's one of my favorites. I didn't like her when I first got her because she's a bit of a miserable thing. But she then proved to be a good mother, and that just won me over. Phew, 6 love. And so I've had this reluctant soft spot for her. You know, I don't like her temperament, but I fully respect and admire and appreciate that she's a good hen. And so I thought, okay, what am I going to do? You know, should I keep on feeding her? Should I wring her neck? In the end, what I decided to do was to feed her and to give her water with the muti in it and just see what happens. Now, I don't want to ring church bells before the victory, but after 4 days of lying prone, so they can't move, the body becomes gradually more and more paralyzed until they start twisting their necks horribly. Anyway, before it got to the stage of this hen twisting her neck, I gave her this water. I had been giving all of the animals the water on an ongoing basis for a couple of weeks. But I'd skipped a couple of days thinking, I'll do it again in a few days' time. In other words, I'm not going to do it 4 times a day for the rest of my life. I'll do it intensively. And then when it appears to have disappeared, the illness, then I'll taper it. So I'll still do, but less. Anyway, so I started giving her this stuff again after 2 days of not giving it. And for 4 days, she has lain motionless, just able only to move her head. And now, about half an hour ago, she moved one of her legs for the first time in 4 or 5 days. I think today is day 5. So, there's hope. And that's just a little story. Nothing more to it than that. But if it does have relevance, it lies in that we have to all prepare now. You can't observe what is happening in South Africa now and what is happening in the world now and not be preparing. You just can't. Obviously, people prepare according to their means. As my mom would say, you cut your coat to suit your cloth. So you can't make some grand big overcoat or fancy suit if you've only got a small piece of cloth or a cheap piece of cloth. Then you make a rag or whatever. So not everybody can do dramatic things, but if you're not doing anything, if you're not buying 20 liters of fuel a month, just 20 liters, or if you're not experimenting with keeping a couple of chickens in your backyard in the East Rand, or if you're not buying the maximum amount of legally permissible ammunition for yourself, little bit by little bit, 10, 20 rounds at a time. If you're not doing anything in spite of the signs around us, well, I'm very sorry, but I don't think that's good enough in these times. So I thought it was kind of half relevant to talk about one of the small things that I'm doing. It's hardly a tremendous achievement to keep a few chickens happy. A little bit of a pain in the neck, but not really difficult. And my experiences with them, the setbacks, the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows. Maybe somebody got something out of this video. I certainly hope so. Thank you very much for watching, and may our Lord bless and keep you in the difficult times that appear now to lie ahead of us. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.